Welcome you all to the School Support Network meeting for April 2025. We're so pleased to have you all here. My name is Liz, and I am going to start to share my screen where we have a bit of an Trish or Leanne, is this the right PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I'm just going to get myself organized a little bit. There we go. So there we go. So today, just wanted to welcome you all. Today, for those of you who may be new to us, yes?
It's not on slideshow.
Slideshow, yeah.
It certainly is not, is it? There we go.
Perfect.
Oh, there we go. Yes, that's a very big sign saying School Support Network. So what we're going to do today, for those of you who may be new to the School Support Network meetings, we're just going to get to know each other a little bit, and then we're going to dive into a workshop all about what are the best practices for intentional school climate improvement. And then we kind of wrap up at the very end with some information about statewide resources, future dates for your calendars, and very importantly, we always ask you to fill out a questionnaire, because that's how we kind of choose the topics that we bring to you through the School Support Network meetings. So today you're going to be hearing a lot from both Trish and me. I'm the bottom person, Elizabeth Hanson. I'm co-founder and co-director of the School Culture and Climate Initiative. I also wear the hat as president and one of the founders of SEL4NJ. And Trish, do you want to say hi as well? Oh, but your Trish is muted.
I knew that as soon as I started to talk. Welcome, everyone. I am Trish Heindel. I am at St. Elizabeth University in Morristown, New Jersey, and I am a dean and professor of psychology there, but I also founded and direct our Center for Human and Social Development, which houses a lot of the work that both Liz and I do together and with our fabulous team. I also co-direct with Maurice Elias from Rutgers University, an online global academy for social emotional learning in schools, where we provide online certificates, one in instruction for social emotional learning and creating a positive classroom climate, and the other for school leadership in bringing social emotional learning and character development school-wide or district-wide for leaders. So that's me, and Liz and I, as Liz said, co-founded and co-direct the School Culture and Climate Initiative, and work with a wonderful team of folks who are just so experienced and expert in this field, including Bill Trusheim, who is one of our folks here with us today.
Great. Thank you, Trish. And as Trish mentioned, we are based at the Center for Human and Social Development, and we have all these resources for schools. Some of them we bring to you free at no charge, just like the School Support Network meetings and all this wonderful professional development that we do bring through the School Support Network meeting, but we also contract with schools on a more intentional basis for a 3-year school climate assessment and improvement process over, I think, probably well over 150 schools throughout the area we've worked with over the course of the last 10, 15 years. We offer professional development and SEL coaching, and we do have a lab as well. So that is us. And so some of you, in a minute, we're going to be doing a little poll, but I think many of you may be familiar with the School Support Network, but this has been going now for over 15 years. And back in the day, pre-COVID, it was an in-person gathering. It is now virtual for the most part. We try to have at least one meeting in person a year. But the idea is really to connect schools and to share really high quality professional development. So we're just so pleased that we're able to bring these to you all. And just something to keep on your radar screen. Some of you may have joined us for some of these coffee chats, but we started again during COVID. There's some horrible things about COVID, but some quite wonderful opportunities emerged. We started having informal coffee chats where we create spaces, a Zoom, a virtual space for school counselors to come together, another one for administrators, another one for ESL teachers. And it's a chance for people in those role-specific jobs to come together and just kind of get a feel for what your colleagues are experiencing in different schools, kind of ask for advice, get support, celebrate successes, kind of commiserate occasionally. But most of all, it's a place for connection and for relationships. So most Wednesday mornings, Trish and I are online for a lovely hour, just kind of very lightly facilitating those drop-in sessions. So if you have not attended a coffee chat, please, we'd love to see you. And at the end of our time together today, there's the dates, upcoming dates. So for us to all settle in, that's my dog Gus, and he's just there because I couldn't help including that photo. But if you would mind to share in the chat maybe 2 words to describe how you're feeling right now, that would be great. And we really ask for 2 words, not just 1 word. Some people can't resist and they use 3 or 4. But if you could do that, that would be fabulous.
Busy and very busy, overwhelmed, behind. I hear you, AJ. Melissa shares that same feeling, overwhelmed. It is almost mid-April, isn't it? The ebb and flow of a school year. Busy and overwhelmed as well. I guess we have a theme that seems to be developing. Busy people.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, sharing your time with us and for sharing how you're feeling. So we get it. So I have a feeling my friend Gus over here is not feeling busy or overwhelmed. So maybe we can get some of his sleepy, cozy energy. So with that said, we are going to have a little bit of a poll just to kind of know who's here. And that would just be great if you could take a few minutes and complete the poll. So Leanne, if you could launch that, that'd be great. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Oh, there's Teresa. Oh, thank you, Trish.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're starting to see some variety. Some folks from different levels of schools and a district level person as well. So that is what we hope for. We really enjoy the opportunity to have people in different professional roles and different levels of school have shared learning experiences and share their learnings with others. So we really are happy about that. And in terms of roles, we're seeing some school administrators, some school counselors so far. And the majority of folks with us today have been at a school support network meeting before. So welcome back and welcome to the folks who are here for the first time. And we hope you become regulars as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Trish, and thank you all for completing the poll. As Trish mentioned, we really are very intentional in ensuring that the school support network, that the professional development topics really are appropriate for K through 12 in different roles in the school. So it really just, it makes us very happy to see the spread of attendance. So thank you very much. That's great. So I'm going to get that off my screen. So we are now, both Trish and I, we don't do usually we have guest sort of presenters. However, once a year or so, we actually, through the School Culture and Climate Initiative, provide the professional development topic. So today, Trish and I are going to be talking about the best practices for intentional school climate improvement. And just so you know, we have been working for over 15 years with schools. Our great mentor is Dr. Maurice Elias from Rutgers, who I think some of you may have heard from, have heard him speak. And so much of our work is based on models that he's developed over the course of the last 10, 20, 30 years. And we also are very fortunate to work with many colleagues all across the country. And so this work is based on, being connected to and learning from and working alongside leaders in the field, as well as our own learned experience of supporting schools in New Jersey over the last 15 years. So, and we have been, we work primarily in New Jersey, Southern New York State. We also have expanded to the Midwest and are working with Chicago Public Schools. So, as well as we do know that people from all over the country do attend our coffee chats, as well as the School Support Network occasionally. So we're very pleased about that. So with that said, I am going to stop sharing this screen and move into my other hat for this presentation. Okay. So Trish, are we on the right screen?
Yes, we are, and
Oh.
you are on correct view.
Great, thank you very much. So we are now moving into the professional development part of today. And as we just mentioned, it's best practices for intentional school climate improvement. And there is Trish's and my details as well. And as Trish mentioned earlier, we have a team of about 10 consultants who work with schools and have been working with schools and as part of the team for many, many years. They are a very important part of this process, as well as our colleague Leanne, who kind of makes the wheels go round on all of the work that we do. So today, we're going to be really focusing on understanding the drivers of intentional school climate for both students and staff, because we know staff are just as important as the kids. And how does SEL play into all of this? As well as kind of, like what you can do in your schools. What are the important things to focus on, to prioritize? What are the best practices, as well as what are some of the challenges schools face? So we hope to have the session be interactive. We have quite a bit of information to share, but we really want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get your questions answered as well. And I think what we are very happy to do, and those of you who do know us could probably attest to this, is we are more than happy to jump on a call at any time, post this presentation and just talk you through, kind of answer questions, talk you through kind of options for schools to get support in addressing and assessing their school climate. There's some great free kind of resources out there. There's others, that cost, but don't ever hesitate in just giving us a ring. We just love to get to know schools and to support your efforts. And we know every school in every district is different. So we always really like to step back and say, what is this whole thing about? All this talk about school climate and SEL. Well, basically, the big idea is to answer the question, how do we really set up that school environment so that kids can thrive and to set them up for success academically, success socially, success emotionally, success so that they get those tools and the right attitudes so that they can succeed once they leave the school. So that's what this is all about. How do we actually do that in a way that's efficient? And we also just love this quote. So basically, we're going to be talking about that today. But we love this quote from Frederick Douglass. It is easier to raise strong children than to fix broken adults. He wrote that in a letter, in 1855 or something like that. It is really quite extraordinary that holds true today more than ever. So we do think that again, having a positive school climate, having all those humans in the building, having strong social emotional skills, that is how we raise strong children. So we're going to put you in breakouts for just like 3 minutes. And we're going to really what we'd love you to do is to talk about what does a school environment look like and feel like that sets students up to thrive? Like what is it? And so if you could go into your little breakout rooms and discuss that, and then just a quick conversation, and maybe you want to assign one of you to be a scribe or a report out, somebody to report out, that would be great. So again, just focus on that first question, just for like a 3-minute quick breakout. So Leanne, can you do that?
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Which is
Okay, welcome back, everyone.
Liz, do you want to stop sharing and
Oh,
then
we can.
reshare?
That's a great idea.
So we can see people.
Good idea. There we go.
All right, so that was a quick chat. Anyone like to share some ideas that came out of that quick chat about what do school environments feel like that set students up to thrive?
Julie, do you want to share a little bit about what we talked about? We were on this kind of on the same page, but share what you were thinking. You want to do that?
You're muted, Julie. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
And I had such brilliant things to say. Y'all missed it now. Now I'm gonna have to be sorry about that. Yeah, we were talking about how it's like it's hard to put quantitative description or even a qualitative description on what something feels like, right? It just feels good. And so we talked about what things that we see. And I think oftentimes things that we see are student work, right? Like student work, academic and social emotional work of things at any level, K-12. We see that in the classroom. We see little pieces of the students in that way. And we also see pieces of the teachers when they share some of their personal items, whether they have pictures of their own family in there. We hear teachers calling students by name when they're in the classroom instead of just saying, hey, you, and greeting them, when they come into the classroom. See you later, Patricia. Hope you had a great day, Patricia. I think those are some of the things. What else? I think being clear is kind, and I think that's helpful. Structure is important for kids, and part of that is having those expectations, whether it's for the behaviors in the classroom, but also the learning, behaviorally, socially, emotionally, and so the learning targets are in, developmentally appropriate, kid-friendly language. I think that those are things that can all help to with that sense of belonging. Teresa, I think I'm getting just about everything right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. Those are great. Sense of belonging. I appreciate you pointing out that structure is really critical as well for students to thrive. Anybody else want to add to Julie and Teresa's comments? What other qualities, feelings, things you can identify about a school that creates an environment where students can thrive?
We talked too about a sense of belonging as well, just feeling like they belong, and feeling safe, and obviously physical safety, but also the safety to take risks, the safety to make mistakes, to know that they can try and will be supported. Obviously strong relationships, and I said something very similar about common expectations, that they need to know what the expectation is, again, whether it's behaviorally or academically, so that they can be successful.
Terrific. Terrific. Okay, so I think now what we're going to do is we're going to flip the question and ask you to go into breakout rooms again and think about the same question, but now focus on the adults. So teachers and staff, what does a school look like and feel like that sets staff up to thrive. So we'll see you again in a couple of minutes.
Here we go.
Oops, someone's got some cool music playing.
Yeah, I'm in a,
Kids.
so everybody knows, I'm a Kearney principal. I have about 960 students in a pre-K 3 to 6 school. We had a booster-thon fun run today. I'm on the field with them. I'm at a table with you guys, so I didn't miss you. And they're running with their teachers. Parents are here checking their backs off because they have to run so many laps. They've had pledges. I have parents in the stands. So it's a nice day. And few
Oh,
complaints about the weather, but if we wait for this weather to get warm, we're gonna wait forever.
oh, it sounds great. Thank you so much for making this all happen for everybody.
All right. Any people want to share thoughts about the environment for the adults? And there's a famous book title, "If you don't feed the teachers, they will eat the adults." So we know
students,
how
right.
important it is for the adults to be able to have an environment in which they can also thrive. So, but what are the elements? What are the qualities? What do you see in a school where you think the school environment is one where the adults can thrive?
I'll go if you can hear the music so I can speak.
that's
This way we'll have
fun.
a little,
Yes,
little background music. We have a social committee, which I mentioned in the breakout room, where we do some Irish soda bread at St. Patrick's Day. We do some cookie exchange at holiday time. We do a welcome breakfast at the beginning of the year. I feel like if you build relationships in the building, sometimes they overflow to outside the building. Many of my teachers are in each other's weddings. If they're young, the older ones get together and do different things. So, they building the relationships in a school this big is very important. So we do that a lot. So I only wanted to mention that, and I also said that we love music, as you can see in this building. So we dance, we dance together. We were out on the field a few years ago doing a dance routine together. We took a shot, aerial view, and we're going to do that again. And we're going to go around, and I'm trying to build up the climate again because I have a lot of new teachers now, and we're going to go around with the camera and ask teachers why they love Franklin School, and we're gonna put a video together and again dance again to maybe ABC by Michael Jackson and have some fun with it. And I think that keeps the camaraderie going. We have an end of year party, we have a holiday party, and just dancing and having some fun and happy hour sometime. Just also get that in there does help. We have curriculum meetings after school sometimes on Fridays, so that's
Curriculum meetings. I love that. So that's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. Really attention and intention to help create positive relationships among everybody in that school community who are on staff, and how that helps to build that trust, which is that social glue. Thank you for sharing that. I think we all want to come to your curriculum meetings now
Yeah.
and dance with you on the field.
You're invited, and we love to dance.
Anybody else?
I
Teresa?
don't mind jumping in. Julie and I were back together again in the second breakout, and we kind of went quickly to a common thought and thinking, and we looked at the list of what we had for the students, and we felt it was a mirror image to what's helpful for the staff. So it's, that the staff shows up, that they're present. So at the staff meetings, it's about building teams and just them getting to know each other and who's who, and clear expectations of each other, from the administration to the staff, them having a voice maybe, and what are their gatherings and staff meetings like and about, and what they might do there. And then, it just kind of was a parallel to the students across to the staff.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. There's a lot of overlap because we are all humans, right? And we all really seek For example, a feeling and sense of belonging, whether you are a student in that community, an administrator in that community, a staff member in that community. So appreciate that. And you both raised an important point about voice and being asked for ideas to really give the staff a sense that they are co-creating the environment and co-creating the school that they are a part of. So I appreciate those. Thank you.
Yeah, we've seen a lot just, and Julie and I went into this too, and those that have worked with this process, the school improvement process, right? So many times staff members are asked questions. What do you think? What do you see? How does that feel to you? What ideas do you have? They do surveys and then they hear nothing, right? And so you want to be asked, but then you also want to have some response in that you feel heard. Like Julie says, she commits to always trying to respond to an email. Even if it's, I can't do anything on this now, but I will get back to you soon, so that there's this acknowledgement of receiving, somebody cared to look at it, somebody's responding to me, and that is important as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's being seen and heard, even through email. One more. Someone else want to share? Bill?
Yeah, I'll share. I think there are two other elements. Actually, a couple I was going to mention more, but you've already hit a few of them. One is certainly staff and voice and engagement. We talk about student voice and engagement all the time, and it's a hollow conversation if the staff doesn't feel like they have a voice. So that's really important. Secondly, I think that we talk schools develop core values. And I think that's really important in terms of expectations for the behavior of the kids. But it's also the expectation for the behavior of the adults. And when the adults also believe in those core values, and this is where voice is important, when they co-create those core values, then they model them for the kids. Because we know what we do know about kids is that we hope they listen to what we say. But we absolutely know for sure that they watch what we do and how we behave.
For sure.
And that's really important. And the other one that was mentioned before that is really important is that relationships and trust have to flow down from the top. From the administrators to the teachers, then to the students. And then the students to each other and the teachers to each other.
Right.
So those are my thoughts, and I think that's just really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you, Bill, for adding those, and that that social trust, that glue comes down from the top and has to be demonstrated, right? So not just talk, but as you said, people may listen to what you say, but they'll obviously really see what you do. So thank you for sharing that. And we're going to be talking about core values. So appreciate that tip off for that part of what we're going to be talking with everybody about and getting some feedback from. So thank you all for doing that. And we'll take it over to Liz from there.
Great. Then you can see my screen. Yes.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so just to kind of lay some groundwork about what exactly is school climate before we dive deeper into the best way of addressing it in your school, is that the drivers of school climate, there's staff drivers of school climate, and there's student perceptions, which are also drivers of school climate. Well, they're all perceptions. But if you look at this list, you can see, just at first glance, you can imagine that is really important, and all of these things really influence how a school feels, how a school functions, how the humans interact with one another, on the student perceptions of connectedness, right? We were talking about connectedness and a sense of belonging, student voice, as Bill's just been sharing. This, all of these things really, really are what we measure when we measure the impact of work to address school climate. These are the things that if you address intentionally, you'll make a difference. So we just thought it was really worthwhile sharing these drivers. Trish will be talking about these a little bit in more detail, I believe. And why? Why do we focus on these things? Because it makes a huge difference. I think many of you have seen the impact of SEL. The impacts of a positive school climate are really, really important. Kids want to be there. They're more motivated to do well. The things like, bullying, other incidences like that, it goes down. Kids do better, they graduate better, they do better in school. And also really importantly, as Bill mentioned and Trish mentioned, it's not just for the kids. Teachers who are in a school that has a positive school climate, it impacts their morale and their retention. They stay longer and they want to be there. And as Bill mentioned, kids see what teachers do. And if a teacher's modeling that they like to be at the school, the kids are going to pick up on that. So all of these impacts of a positive school climate are tangible and they're measurable. And I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind. So it is really worthwhile to focus on intentionally improving a school climate. And the negative things, the bad things, they all go down. And I don't think we even need to talk much about this list because we definitely want to have these be at a minimum for all of our students. And when these are reduced, life in the school is a lot easier. So again, reasons why to focus on it. We always share this slide. And the reason is because, especially in New Jersey, where I think most of you are from, has been a big focus on social emotional skills, which is fabulous. There's also a really big focus on school climate. Schools are mandated in New Jersey to assess and address school climate. And what we've seen occasionally is that those two efforts live in parallel silos that don't very often interact. But it's really important to internalize and understand how they absolutely do intersect and how they're integrated. So those social emotional skills, SEL, those are skills. And those skills of the students and the staff, so all the humans, create the foundation for a positive school climate. And then within this positive school climate, all of the skills can be practiced and where real teaching and learning can happen, where everyone feels respected, heard, valued, supported. They have a sense of connection and belonging. Those are the things that make us more receptive for learning and make it easier to teach as well, to have those positive relationships. And with social emotional skills, they're skills. They need to be practiced every day by all of us. When you get to be a great tennis player, you don't stop practicing. These are some things that we continually work on as humans. And also, trauma-informed practices. We always include this because it's just such a good idea to always have a trauma-informed approach to everything. And those of you that have a trauma-informed focus in your school, again, it's absolutely integrated with the social emotional skills and a positive school climate. A positive school climate is a trauma-informed institution. So all these things are very integrated. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking and turn this over to Trish for a little bit.
Thanks, Liz. So this next section, we just want to be on the same page with regard to what we mean when we say social emotional learning, and then also how do we encourage SEL growth in students. So sort of two parts. And it's very likely that this castle wheel is familiar to those of you who are on the call. And perhaps not to some others, but this is a model for social emotional learning that we've been using in our work. It's a popular one. It's not the only one, but what's critical is to adopt one so that a model like this CASEL 5, and CASEL stands for the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And the website is casel.org. It's a fabulous clearinghouse of all things social emotional learning, research practice. They've done a lot of vetting of SEL programs. It's just there's a plethora of supports there. But the key for our conversation about intentional school climate and SEL work is to underscore the importance of having a shared language, which translates with a model into shared goals. So a vision that can be clear to all, and everyone then is aligned with the vision and the goal for, in particular, social emotional learning. So this Castle 5, as I said, is one model identifying 5 core social emotional skills and then the sub skills within those. And there's a lot of consensus among parents, among school community members, among leaders and teachers and staff, that these are good things that we want our students to be able to develop. So how do we encourage the growth of the social emotional skills in students? I would draw your attention to the blue outer rings, and we'll be talking about each of those rings a little bit. But those 3 outer rings were added. So this is Castle Wheel Point 2 or 2.0, because what we know from research is that having a systemic, integrated approach to encouraging social emotional skills development in our students requires that the social emotional skills are incorporated and addressed in the classroom, incorporated into the curriculum and instruction, in other words. And the best approach, we'll talk about a little bit later, is a fully integrated approach where one of the learning outcomes for lessons includes a social emotional skill. So it is for students an experience that is cohesive, that it is more clear to them that they are learning this skill along with the content skill, and why it is important to do so. And there's a lot of models of that that you can find. We have a number of briefs on our SEL4NJ.org website that are examples of how to incorporate social emotional skills building into different content areas. So within the curriculum and instruction, but also we'll touch on the importance of integrating goals of social emotional skills demonstration, if you will, in school-wide practices and policies. We're going to talk about that a little bit. How do your school-wide policies align with the goals of social emotional development of kids and of adults? And then engagement and collaboration with home and the community. So we'll talk about this too, and nod to this in a little bit. Giving kids practice with, giving them practice opportunities to develop skills should be everywhere in their club sports team experiences, at home, and also in school. So just a continuity between and among places where they are and the people that they are with in terms of an intentional recognition when they are demonstrating a good social emotional skill, an opportunity for them to practice and maybe have a growth experience for one. But those outer rings are really important to the conversation around integration and doing work intentionally and systemically. So next slide, Liz. Like for climate, I'm just going to touch on this for a second. There's a lot of research showing the impact, the positive impact of incorporating social emotional skills building in schools for kids. There was a meta-analysis done in 2011 that showed impact of intentional social emotional skills instruction on kids. And that it's effective and can work. This is a longitudinal study showing the longitudinal impact of intentionally helping students to grow their skills. And the impacts are just amazing on our kids' futures. So the next slide, Liz. We don't want to be forgetting about the adults again. So bringing the teachers back into the picture, social emotional skills of teachers have an impact on the learning experience of kids for sure, but also teachers, as this research shows, who have high levels of social competence are better able to deal with the challenges, the crises that they face on an hourly basis, and to prevent burnout from happening. So teachers are more likely to stay in the classroom and be retained if they demonstrably have good social emotional competence. And here's some reasons why that make a lot of sense. If you have a socially emotionally skilled teacher, that teacher is going to be able to develop better relationships with students, manage behavior of students better, but importantly, regulate their own emotions and use positive coping skills to deal with the stresses of being an educator. So thank you, Liz. Next slide. How else can we say the importance of social emotional competencies of teachers? This quote from James Comer is again a call to action to recognize that really no learning occurs without a significant positive trusting relationship. So what works to help promote student social emotional learning is to be adults, staff, teachers in a building who can use their own social emotional competencies to promote those positive relationships and trusting relationships with students that in turn can help them to grow their own social emotional and of course academic skills development. So no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. How can we use as adults our social emotional skills to create those relationships with students so that they are set up to succeed? Next, creating a positive classroom climate can also help students to grow social emotional skills. And we've heard these ideas from those of you from your breakout conversations, that in the classroom, it is a space where students should feel a sense of belonging and connectedness and be welcomed. So greeting students by name, we've heard that. We've heard about encouraging students' voice and agency, so co-creating social norms and classroom rules with the students is an opportunity to have that voice. Encouraging students, taking a strength-based approach to their learning experiences and engaging their voice throughout, even with choices in terms of lessons and how lessons are organized or delivered, giving them choices for how they learn. So that all of those things create a very positive classroom climate and environment for students that's going to encourage their learning. Relationship qualities for optimal learning. These elements, again, are typically really present in people who have good social emotional skills, who have a trauma-informed approach to every interaction with another person, be it a student or an adult. Warmth, sending feelings of warmth to the person you are interacting with. Being consistent, we heard about structure. Attunement, which means trying to take the perspective of the other person and trying to understand what that person may be feeling so that your responses to that person are attuned to whatever that feeling is. And I love the analogy I heard from someone else about shaking up soda can. That, you know what happens if you drop a soda can and you put it in the refrigerator and some unsuspecting family member goes into the refrigerator, takes out the can and opens the can. Well, it explodes. So sometimes we are interacting with shaken up soda cans. And at first we may not know that. So there may be a student who you are addressing a behavior issue with out in a hallway. That student may be a shaken up soda can. So it is important to be very present in that moment, be attuned to what might be under that iceberg that is really causing that student's behavior problem. Always affirming, always being positive, always taking a strength-based approach, pointing to students' successes and achievements will also affirm their agency and in turn create more motivation for them to continue to try and resilience and persevere. And then relationships have to be built on mutual trust and respect. And that can be demonstrated in our interactions, in our on our behavior. And then the last slide for me for this section is just to call out different approaches that that schools and districts have used in attempting to incorporate social emotional learning into the learning experiences of the students in the community. One is identifying an SEL program. There are a lot of programs that are designed well, that have evidence of effectiveness that you can find on that Castle site, by the way. So there are a number of programs that you can actually purchase, have staff trained to deliver, and be delivered in maybe in morning meetings or at times throughout the school schedule. And so there are positive things about that. These are well constructed, that you get a lot of materials that are good materials. They're evidence-based, so we know that if they're delivered with fidelity, they're going to have the impact on helping students to develop their skills. The downside is it's separate from what students might perceive as the real important stuff, the academic lessons and classes that they have. So the second one is what I mentioned earlier, to take an approach that infuses SEL into the curriculum. And as I said, there are models for doing that available. General teaching strategies and having a positive climate, as we just described. And then school-wide SEL implementation, which is where we want to get to in terms of having a systemic, sustainable, and integrated approach where all of those blue wheels outside of the castle wheel are functioning well. So having it more coordinated. And then, Liz, it's over to you. You're muted, Liz.
There I am. So some of you may have seen these images before. But what's really important to have is to take a coordinated approach. And in a minute, we're going to be diving into the meat of that. Trisha's going to be talking about a framework. What is it? What does it look like? And why is it important? So if you look at the top photo or the image, that's sort of like sometimes what we kind of think sometimes happens to schools is that over the course of 20 years, more, sometimes less, but over the course of years and decades, lots of great things are brought into a school for really important reasons, to address a specific need because they've shown to have great impact, because they were important. They were brought in with great intentionality. But then what happens sometimes is over the course of those years, they never leave. The kids change, the situations change, the need changes, and yet all of these things are still in the school. And eventually they get jumbled up. And this is a slide, this image was created by Dr. Marie Elias years ago now. Some of the labels are a little bit dated, but overall, it really gives you an image of what it might feel like to be in that school. But to step back and take a coordinated approach to all of this, that's how you can get to the bottom image, which is where the social emotional character development is the roof that surrounds the school community. And inside it, those academic skills aren't being compromised because everything else is organized, it's unjumbled, it's coordinated. And having a coordinated, unjumbled school, it makes it a lot easier to function within that school. There's this coherence and alignment that Trish is going to talk about in a minute that's absolutely vital. That can be clear. It's much more easy to be consistent in a place that's organized. So, and very importantly, we know schools are incredibly busy places doing incredibly important things. And it's so important that people's time, students and staff time, are used wisely and respectively. It's a lot easier to function and get done what needs to be done in a school that looks like the bottom image, and where that umbrella of social, emotional, and character development is infused throughout. So this is a really helpful image we find that really resonates. So thank you to Dr. Elias for putting that together years ago. So this is just kind of some really good advice. Lots of times when we work with schools, you know, there's so much that needs to happen. They just want to get things done. We understand that. However, when it comes to creating a positive school climate and really getting that infusion of social emotional skills right, it's really important to build a strong foundation. And sometimes building that strong foundation takes time. This work isn't a race, it's not a marathon. And we were at a meeting actually a couple of weeks ago, and we heard a phrase that stuck with us. And it's sort of working at the speed of trust. And that really resonated with us, because if to address, and as Tricia is going to be sharing in a little bit, some of the really important things schools need to do first in terms of figuring out, where are we going? Why are we going there? And how are we going to do that? We need trust, social trust. And that's kind of the glue that holds these things together, is the social trust. So, and sometimes it takes a while to build that trust, and that's okay. The process is incredibly important. Just by walking the talk and breathing and modeling the skills along your journey, you're making a big difference. And you know, this is the Pont de Gore. Some of you may have been here and walked across it. It's full of tourists and visitors all the time walking across this stuff of this. The Romans built it in, you know, 2,000 years ago. And I'm pretty sure they had a plan. I'm pretty sure they invested in making sure that those foundations were really strong. And it's still there 2,000 years later. They didn't rush this. I think they took their time and they really thought it through. So I think this image kind of just speaks volumes in terms of why it's okay to take a while to get your team ready to get this right at the foundational level. So, Trish, I'm going to turn this over to Trish, and she's going to we're going to dive in.
Okay, so we're going to suggest a possible framework, one possible framework, and that is shared core values of the school community. There are other potential frameworks that schools can use. Some schools use a portrait of a student, for example, to capture the collective vision for what the school wants to be. We like core values, but there are, as I said, lots of other opportunities to pick frameworks. We're going to talk about why in a minute, but the first thing we want to do is to have you guys talk to each other. So on the next slide, we've got some breakout prompts for you. So what we would like you to think about is first, do you think there are any values with regard to what your school community holds up and as a community wants to live by? Sometimes those values are explicit and maybe found on a wall in a hallway. Sometimes they're implicit, and sometimes there are implicit values that are different from the explicit ones on the hallway wall. But what core values provide for a community are guides for expectations or norms for behavior and goals. So values of a culture or community are what drive behavior. So if you walked through a school, or you were a cultural anthropologist and you embedded yourself in a culture, if you observe the behavior of the people of that community, you would see the actual objective behavior that represents the underlying values that are driving that behavior. So we'd like you to think about whether or not there are core values. Some of you might have core values that are on the hallway. That's great. But think about what they are, if they are more implicit. And then if you have time in the breakout, talk about how these values actually live in your school community. If there's a value of, let's say, respect, is that value of respect showing up in the school? And in particular, do the policies and practices of the school align with those values? And we'd love you to be taking some things home and back to your school from these conversations. So thinking about what takeaways you can glean from the conversation in the breakout that you might want to take back to your school and talk to other people about. So we're going to have it a little bit longer this time, Liz and Leanne, you think?
Like maybe 4 minutes.
Maybe 4 minutes, okay.
I think we're a little short.
Okay. So see you in 4 minutes.
There we go.
Okay, so you want to stop sharing this? Well, welcome back, everybody. We gave you a lot to talk about in 4 minutes. But we hope we got the wheels turning. So just a couple of feedback sharings from folks. Anybody want to share what you discovered?
So we currently have core values. We implemented core values. I'm a principal of 4th and 5th grade school, so I have about 350 9 and 10-year-olds. So we incorporated this idea of core values, simple as possible: respect for yourself, respect for others, and respect for our school, because we wanted to really pare it down. And we found that any type of behaviors or choice making that happens at school can really fit into one of those 3 categories. And this year we've really tried to work on the language component of it, making sure that all the adults are saying the same thing, that those core values become part of our conversations with students wherever they are. And it is explicit, like you mentioned. It's on the door of every single entrance that they can possibly go in, whether it's the cafeteria, the bathroom, the office. It's everywhere, so that it is a visual reminder that this is what our expectation is. This is what we all agree to. And the way we've tried to kind of handle situations where there's different values outside of school is we have something called the Husky Blue Line, where the Huskies, there's a physical blue line painted outside the door of
I
the
love that.
and when they walk across the blue line, that's the signal that they have committed to these 3 core values that we're trying.
Love it.
I
That's
love that. I
really
love that. That is
that's
so
great.
great. And the adults too, right? They're
Yeah, I
committed
hope
to
so.
this.
I do hope so.
All right, that's great. Thank you. So you are well on the journey, beyond the journey of creating those. That's wonderful. Anybody else? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about being at the more beginning phases and why a framework is important, and insert core values in there as the framework. There's another wonderful one, and Bill Trusheim here is with us, who is the state leader for character education, really, in New Jersey. In the interest of time, Bill, we're going to put this at the end again, so that you can talk more about the core values from character.org. And what I just wanted to share, and Bill is available for talking with anybody more about the character education work that he leads. But this is an example of a core value model that's based on character strengths that comes from character.org. And they are similar to the social emotional skills model that we saw from Castle. They're core values that then have sub-values that are in those boxes. Also importantly, on the next slide, character.org has done a wonderful job in interrelating or looking at the relationship between social emotional skills and these character strengths. And you can see that the alignment is perfect, which creates advocacy really for an approach that is social, emotional, and character development, or SECD. And you saw that acronym on the jumbled schoolhouse slides. So this is a great resource. Bill is a fabulous national and state resource. We're going to kick it back to him toward the end of today. But to the next slide, we want to look at the steps involved in creating a framework. Again, inserting core values as the example. It really should begin with having a coordinating body. We've been talking the entire afternoon about having voice of students and staff and parents and the community, I would add as well. And it's incredibly powerful to have all of those voices be a part of a coordinating body. So this coordinating body can lead a process in developing core values for a school. It harnesses the voice we've been talking about. This should become the table that brings all different related efforts and programs and resources that have anything to do with the goals of having a positive climate and encouraging social emotional skills building. And that should be on the table when talking about core values. So there's coordination of key core values to all of the programs and resources. I love the example that was just shared of how those 3 values in that school appear everywhere, including on that crossing that blue line. And this coordinating body can keep this work present and visible and share out on a regular basis where the coordinating body is in developing this framework. And the next slide, we're inserting that core values for the school is what that coordinating body is working toward. So the core values in the end will be inclusive of all stakeholders' inputs, which is really critical for buy-in. That the core values should flow from the mission and vision of the school and the district. So there might be some recursive, sort of back and forth to maybe revising or revisiting the mission and the vision while doing this core value. They should definitely be aligned. And then start thinking about how you're going to incorporate social emotional skills building in a way that is aligned with the core values and creates that common language. Those 3 values of take care of yourself, take care of others, take care of your school, creates the language that you can use that is a shared language, so everybody knows what the goals are and the path to get to those goals. The next slide is the work of then making sure that there is alignment of the core values to these key documents that drive the day-to-day in a school/district. And they are policy documents. Strategic plan should be aligned with this framework. Communication strategies that keep the community aware of the work that's going on and continue to reinforce those values, that framework. And have continued engagement so that those core values don't get dry and stale or start peeling off of the hallway wall. So the framework can help when you are starting with a framework to actually work toward helping to achieve sustainability. But it's better to choose your approach to social, emotional, and character development after adopting those core values, so that you can place the goals of social emotional learning, you can put those character strengths in line with the broader framework of what you would like to achieve in that portrait of a student, or in achieving those values. So that was a quick run through of getting to this glorious image of those beautiful purple flowers.
So thank you, Trish. So we're going to talk a little bit about like what comes first in this effort. So this is kind of a process flow chart that we use for our school climate assessment and improvement process. So you'll see some things like a SCSI 101, that's our own internal label for some professional development we do. But this is kind of, this approach can be adopted by any school doing this work. So as mentioned before, one of the key things at the beginning is relationship building, is that there needs to be buy-in that this effort is important, that it's valid, that it's worth our time. And that comes from the top as well as from the bottom. So it's really important to identify a core team, to and make sure that everybody's on the same page to start with. So that relationship building, the building of the trust, as Bill mentioned early on, you know, it starts with some of the leaders in the school. You know, they have to demonstrate, they have to walk the talk as well. And then the SCSI 101, we call it our introduction to the initiative and the work for schools that we partner with for 3 years. But this is really to be sharing with all of your staff, why are you intentionally focusing on school climate? And what is that going to look like? And how is that going to play out? And what are sort of, you know, we talked a lot about clear and consistent expectations and being consistent. It's really important to be transparent and invite people into the process. So they can't be supportive and or engaged in the process unless they really know what it is. So as part of setting up this effort to succeed, it's important to be clear and to share the information with your staff. Quite often in schools are doing the most amazing things, but they're kind of top secret. This is when it's important to share and be very transparent. And then building teams, creating a communication plan. That's really important. Trish talked about the coordinating body. That's when you do it. Because maybe after sharing kind of what is this effort going to look like, some people might want to be part of that team. So that's where the teams come in here. And then a communication plan. When we work with schools, we really do recommend that a couple of minutes at every staff meeting is set aside to be talking about school climate efforts. Just to keep it present, to make sure everyone is aware of it, that the work is not top secret, of inviting ideas and input. So a communication plan is important, especially we are working in some districts where it's the entire district is participating. It's really important that schools know what each other are doing as well as parents. Visioning and core values. Really important. Trish talked, you know, for a few minutes here about the importance of core values. Well, visioning is really important as well. You know, kind of what kind of school do you want to be, right? That visioning is really, really important. And the core value conversations are really important. And then we get to kind of getting together the data. And one of the very first things, you know, kind of best practice that schools are encouraged to do is to figure out what you've got going on. You know, it kind of seems obvious, but it's really interesting when schools go through the, you know, the process of saying, okay, what do we have in the school? And usually everyone blurts out 2 or 3 things, sometimes 5 things. Everyone's like, yeah. And then someone's like, well, what about this as well? And oh, actually, we're doing this as well. And the list grows and grows and grows. And the next step is to say, okay, we have this long list of resources and supports and efforts that are going on in the school. Why are they here? Like what kids are they, you know, are they kind of influencing, impacting? Are they the kids that need it? Another question is this being implemented with fidelity, or has it just been in the school for 10 or 20 years and it's kind of fallen apart a little bit? So all of those questions, just doing an inventory, a resource map, a landscape analysis, really helps. In committees. We know there are a lot of committees in schools. While you're doing this, it's a good idea to do a committee's inventory as well, just to make sure that those are as efficient as possible. Because we know there's a couple of you that go around and are on every committee. And then we recommended the climate survey. We have our own climate survey. The Rutgers and the DOE have developed the NJ Sky climate survey. So there's other surveys out there as well. In New Jersey, there's quite a bit of choice. Really important to take a data-driven approach, just so that your hunches can be, either proved true or some more interesting data might be apparent. So we really, really encourage looking at data to help guide your process. And then, not only like earlier, we were talking about how lots of schools do data review, they collect data, but you never hear anything back from them. So a data review where the team sits down and really looks at this data and then identify strengths and opportunities. It's really important to identify what's great about your school so you can invest in it and let people know and do more of it, as well as where are opportunities to learn more, to kind of maybe there's some gaps that need filling. So those will turn into action plans. And those action plans really need to be achievable. There really is no point in starting with huge aspirational issues. It's important to identify them. But in terms of action plans, and this helps with the trust building, is to identify, well, okay, if we have this overall large issue, how are we going to get there? What are the steps we can take now to start to address this? And small is fine, low-hanging fruit is great. And then, of course, we are all continuous learning models. Professional development is really important. There's no reason that schools need to invent the wheel. There's amazing resources out there to support you in your efforts. And then infusion of social and emotional learning throughout the process. It can be a wonderful exercise in all of the adults sort of walking the talk and modeling their social and emotional skills throughout all of this. And the idea is that those skill building opportunities are infused throughout every human interaction in the school, whether it's studying or meetings. Trish, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so we're at 2:25. So I
Yep.
think what we want to share is that we have some more information on some tips for sustainability that will be part of the PowerPoint. We do want to give people a little bit of time to ask questions about what we've shared and some takeaways you might be taking home with you. And then Bill is here if people want to ask about the character.org movement and how you can become a school of character or a district of character. And Bill, I'm sure you'll be more than happy to answer any questions about character.org. So that said, I think we could go to opening it up.
Yep, absolutely. And I just wanted to share this this image, which is really encapsulates kind of the good approach. You can see this little person here is really making progress because the rungs are achievable. Those are the to-do action plans, as opposed to somebody who can't even get started because they're a bit too lofty. So any questions? I'm going to stop sharing. In theory.
There we are. So anyone want to share a takeaway or an aha or a question from today, or share something that you are doing that is something that we've talked about? Oh, we have a couple of people from the team here. Hi, Kathleen McClay, Teresa, Bill.
Okay, well, I think what we're going to do. Oh, great. Thank you, Leanne, for putting in the link to the evaluation. That's really important too. So as mentioned above, you will be getting this PowerPoint. And also our contact details. We're more than happy to jump on a call. Can also happy to connect you with other schools.